Hello, BUSN 1360 Software Applications for Business. Welcome. I'm your instructor, Dr. McGrory, and today we begin our study of Excel. And in this chapter, we have a lot to learn, so let's get started. I think you're going to love this because it is such a valued business skill and it will help you accomplish so many of your work tasks very quickly. And those work tasks may be in your professional career or they may be in community or church organizations where you are managing inventories, using long lists of data, such as we did in the mail merge with Word, using an Excel spreadsheet, or maybe financial data. Lot going on here, lots to learn. Now, I've already downloaded the files, and I hope that you are continuing to put your files into folders to stay organized. So I'm going to open up my Excel 1 file. And I see that I have 3 files. Only one of them is an Excel file. Now, I'm going to go ahead and open this because we know that step 1 of our instruction is always to open the file that begins with our last name. So I'm going to do that. The first thing I want you to notice when we open this Excel file is that cell D5 is selected. Why D5? Why not another cell? Because Excel remembers the last cell that you had selected. That's kind of a key thing to remember when you are saving a file for yourself or to email to your boss. If you want them to look or to be focused already, viewing a certain area of the spreadsheet, make sure you've selected that. It's also interesting because sometimes you may think you don't really change anything, but you select another cell, and when you change it, let's see if it'll do it. Oh, it didn't do it, but sometimes Excel will actually say, do you want to save these changes? And all you did was click another cell. But you noticed when I went into that, I'm going to open it again, it looks very, very plain, right? So we're going to go through and we're going to do a lot of formatting and we're going to fill in these blank columns. But I want you to notice how plain it is because I want to look at the second file. This is a picture. Now, when we were given pictures, when we were doing our study of Word, they were pictures to insert into our document. You can certainly do that in Excel, but the reason that they provided us this picture, you want to look at it, this picture. I'm going to double click it because this is what it's going to look like when we're done. That plain Excel spreadsheet is going to look like this. Now, there's a reason they do this in Excel, especially. Sometimes, as you're trying to follow the instructions, it gets a little confusing in terms of did they mean before, did they mean on top of this, what was the desired effect of the instruction. It can actually become a little different to interpret. Also, because we are dealing with a lot of numbers, trust me, I know, I got confused following these instructions. You'll see when we go to submit the assignment. Because as you're going to steps, and by the way, we have 29 steps in these instructions. As you're going through all these steps, going back and forth from instructions to the Excel spreadsheet, it can get confusing, so use this picture as a reference. Now, it is a good reference, especially towards the end, but it is a little difficult to reference as you go through because some of these columns are going to be added and content is going to be shifted over, or rows will be added and content will be shifted down. So sometimes it's a little difficult to compare as you go through. You might want to spot check it, okay? But at the end, it's especially, valuable. You definitely, want to kind of look at it to make sure that you're on track, all right? So I wanted to point that out to you since that's a little bit new. And then, of course, we have our instructions. Let's double-click those to open. And I've already explained we have 29 steps, so we have a lot. Now, I like to begin by understanding the project description. Why? Because we need to understand why. Why are we doing this? If we are mindlessly disengaged clicking, are you going to get the task done? Yes. And then when you need to use this later on, you will fall back to techniques that you currently use, things that I like to call the brute force approach. What is the brute force approach? Let's go back to that picture because I want to caution you against a common error, unfortunately, an error that, oh, I see way too much. This picture shows you the numbers, doesn't it? It says, okay, what is the sale price, for example? Well, what that sale price we will learn is not just something we typed in. Anybody could open up a word processor for that matter, or an Excel spreadsheet, and they could just type in 14.16, right? But that's not the power of Excel that is going to help you look sharp at your job, that's going to help you get done in minutes things that may take somebody using that brute force approach hours. Literally hours. I've seen this happen. Here's what I mean. This sale price is what cost probably times the markup. So, here we have the markup amount. So this is like, our retail price, right? Can you already see that somebody had to add this cost and this markup amount, which they calculated using the markup rate, and then they used a percent off, a discount percentage, and subtracted an amount to get this sale price? This is all just add, subtract, multiply, and divide. And fear not, because you're going to let Excel do this for you. But if you're thinking, well, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to use my cell phone, and I'm going to do the math on it, and then I'm just going to type the numbers in. Here's the problem. This is only 6 products in inventory. Think of any shop, any business that you go into. Do they have only 6 products, or do they have 50, 100 different products that they sell? Even a makeup, items that you sell. There can be so many of those. Somebody selling candles. These are student things that students sell that come to mind where students have businesses. They will have a lot of items. So if the cost of this hat changes, you would have to recalculate the markup amount, or you'd have to recalculate the retail price, you'd have to recalculate the sale price, and that's just for one item, right? You don't want to do this separately and then type the numbers in. My point is, Excel is an adding machine. It is your calculator. You don't have to do the math. Nobody's going to quiz you on your times tables or anything like that. We're going to tell you how to do it. You just need to learn how to make Excel do the math. So you're going to be fine, but don't do the brute force approach. Don't just type these numbers in, because my IT lab grader, it's going to catch you. It's going to mark you wrong on that. So don't do that. Back to our instructions. We now understand that we need to know why we're doing what we're doing. So what is our project? Well, we're the assistant manager of a celebrity musician's souvenir shop, and we want to calculate things like retail price, sale price, and do some profit analysis for selected items on sale this month. We're going to calculate sale prices based on discount rates. Finally, we're going to calculate the profit margin to determine the percentage of the final sale price over the cost, right? We don't want to put something on sale so much that we're losing money without realizing that we're doing that. So we're going to check the spelling. We're going to use this handy autofill function that hopefully you've already been in your ebook. You've looked at the videos. If you look at the case video that is provided by Pearson, it's going to walk you through everything in that chapter from this case perspective. Now, what does it not do? It does not say this is step 1 and this is step 2 of your homework, right? I'm walking you through that to make sure that you are seeing how to apply this. But you may want to look at that video. The simulation activity also prepares you. The quiz helps you focus on things like autofill. Very powerful, very key function of Excel. So we're going to use autofill to complete a sequence for product codes. We're going to use find and replace. We learned that in Word, and we're going to use it again here in Excel. In addition, we're going to adjust columns and row settings. We're going to move and copy data. We're going to format the worksheet, and we're going to apply page setup options. All right, so now that we know why we're trying to do all this and what we're trying to do, we need to, it says start Excel and open that file. That was step one. I demonstrated, and to double click the file to open it. So I'm going to say we've completed step one. On to step two. You notice that the worksheet contains some spelling errors that need to be corrected. So we're going to use Excel to do this. Now, you might think it's strange. I'm going to go back to Excel. You might think it's strange to do spell check in Excel, but it's easy to make spelling errors on column names, on brief titles, so we want to check. And in the simulation, I wonder if you noticed something. Remember how in Word I said every time we spell check, it's advised, it's recommended go to the top of the document. And in the simulation activity for Excel, they actually required you to do that. So, how did you move to the top of the Excel file? I hope you remembered your Word keystrokes. How do we get to the top of a Word document? Control Home. Did you see my cursor move? I'm going to zoom in so that as we do this you can see. Did you see my cell that is selected move? I was down here and what do we say, D5, and I can tell that D5 is selected, most importantly by the green box that goes around the cell. That is huge. Notice that the cell is not shaded. There's no shading on that cell, but you have no doubt that cell D5 is selected. You know that from that green box that goes around the cell. Other things that tell you which cell is selected up here at the top, you can see that the column is shaded, but the column letter has turned green. You may also notice that the row is shaded and the row number has turned green. So when I have that cell selected, that's important. That tells me. Now what happens when I select multiple cells? I'm just going to point this out to you now. Can you still see that that green box goes around all the cells? Now 3 of my 4 cells are shaded. 1 is not. Is that one cell still selected? Yes, because it is inside that green box. This is going to be key as we continue. Now I already mentioned that Control Home, and notice how it moved. If you ever feel that you can't locate what is selected, it's gone too fast and your worksheet is too big, look up at this very top box. This is called the name box. And notice that cell A1 appears in there. And so that tells me the name of the cell that is currently selected. I'll tell you something kind of cool. When I pass my mouse over that, remember that in Microsoft Word we learned that when we move our mouse, if it changes to the shape of the I-beam, that means that I can click to type. So if I click in that name box, do you see how it's selected cell A1? Well, if I wanted to move to cell, let's just say G10, the column name always comes first, I can just type it, G10. And once I've typed it, I'm going to press Enter, which is what we always have to do in Excel. We're always pressing Enter after we type. And look, see how it changed and moved the selection to the name of that cell. So if I click someplace else, it tells me, in this case, cell I5 is selected. Here's a big caution. Oftentimes you will look at your instructions that say things like, go to cell I5. And if you look, it looks like the number 15. But we know a cell name can never simply be 15, right? So that first item must be the column. The first part must be the column, followed by the row. With that said, we have a lot of rows and columns in Excel. How many? How many do you think? Well, we can find out because you already know the keystrokes to do so. We said Control Home goes to the very top of the document. When we wanted to go to the very end of the Word document, what was the keystroke that we used? Wasn't it Control End? What if I do that now? Control End. Okay, I've done it once, and if you look, this is really smart. It's not simply the last place I clicked or anything like that. It knows, Excel is so smart, it loves patterns. It knows that this is approximately the table. And if this table was filled in, this is where the last part of the table would be. So it went to its perceived end of our table. So it is the end, in essence, of the data, right? So it's the perceived end of our table and presumably where the data would be. But we learned another trick when we were working with Microsoft Word. We learned that we could put that control key, not just with home and not just with end, but with our arrow keys. Now, which direction do you want to go? Do you want to go up, down, left, or right? Well, if I do control up arrow, it jumped to the top of the table, right, where the data would be. Do control up arrow again, and it jumped to the top of the document. If I do control down arrow, it searches until it finds data, but do control down arrow again. This happens to students a lot, and I normally see it looks like this inside the classroom. It looks like all your data has gone. Right? That's the look. Look at the row that you are on. You have reached the end of Excel. You are on row 1,048,576. That's a lot of rows, and that's how many rows there are in Excel. So if this happens and you just want to click your heels 3 times and go back home, control home. So we're navigating here a little bit. Now that was control down arrow. What if we did control, now I'm in cell A1. Let me do control down arrow one more time. Do you see how it found the data? Okay, do control down arrow once more. Do you see how it went to the end of the column? So it's searching for your columns. These are things you might need to do when you're in Excel. Go to the end of a long row. Go to the top or end of a long column. Go to the top of a long column. What if you did control right arrow? It skipped the code column because that's blank. Do control right arrow again. It went to the end of the data. So it found the beginning of data. Then it went to the end of data. Control right arrow. It found the next beginning of data. Now there's no more data. So if we control right arrow again, what I'm showing you is that control arrow skips through your data. It goes to the starting and ending points of data. So control right arrow again. Excel was looking and looking and looking for data. It didn't find it, and it went all the way to the end of Excel. This is the last column. X, F, D. Do control down arrow. So the end of Excel, this is a lot, is column X, or cell, I could even say. How about cell XFD 1048576? That's a lot, especially because the way that Excel comes up with column names when it gets to the end of ABCD XYZ is then it says AA, not BB, AA, AB, AC, AD, AE. Guess what it does when it gets to AZ? BA, BB, BC, BD. So it did that all the way through 26 times, all the way through the letter X. And then it went all the way through those alphabets. Then it got to a third letter, and so it said AAA, AAB, AAC, and it did all that till it got to XFD. My point, folks, that's a lot of columns, and that's a lot of rows. But if you have that reaction, where did my data go? Control home, get back to the top. Okay, so we're learning to move around efficiently and maybe even accidentally within our worksheet so that we can get comfortable with that. But that's a little more than step 2, but I told you I want you to know these as we continue on. So we're trying to spell check. Here goes the spell check. We know from Word that it was on the Home tab, right? It was a button that we use so frequently, it was down here at the end. But we also knew that if we were going to review this before we gave it to our boss, for example, that we would start on the Review tab. And it was the very first button. Now the button looks a little different. In fact, the button in Word is the new modernized button. This is how the button has historically looked in older versions of Word, Excel, everything. So here's spell check. I'm going to click that. It comes up and it noticed that we misspelled souvenir. So we need to change that. See how it works really similarly. Now here, and I need to scoot this over so I can see. Here it's advanced on to cell F4 and it found that we started to type retail, but there was an E at the end and it couldn't understand what we were trying to say. Retailed, retailer, retail. This is where it's a good idea to go look at the picture, because if you look at the picture, you'll understand that retail is the word that they want, and click change. Spell check is complete. Let's click OK. Let's save. Thank you for that long first step and for indulging me on that, but you got a lot of really good information that you'll continue to use as we go throughout. So let's go back to the instruction. That was step 2, on to step 3. You want to use the autofill to enter a series of codes to create the product numbers. So don't type these in, folks. Use the autofill. Okay, we're going to start in cell B5 and we're going to enter 101 and then we're going to fill that sequence. So what is a sequence? 101, 102, 103. I say it's 0, right? 101, 102, 103. And we're going to do that starting with B6, going all the way through, that's what those 2 dots mean, through B10 with the series. So let's go back to Excel. They told us to start here in B5. We're simply going to type 101. Whenever we're finished typing in a cell and we want to accept that, I want you to get used to hitting the Enter key. Okay? Now, you'll notice not only did that kind of finalize that data in the cell, it also moved down. So the cell below is now selected. Well, that's not going to help me for this autofill. I need to select that cell. So if you learned from this first chapter on Excel, because you are the savvy, wise student, you learned that you could have instead pressed Control Enter to stay in that same cell, then that would be correct also. Now, when I look at this cell, I need to emphasize something that's key to your success. Big pro tip. I'm going to zoom in really big so that you can see. When I move my mouse, have you noticed that your mouse is not pointy? It is a puffy white plus sign until it changes. And that's going to happen a lot, and it's always an indication we can do something special. So when I move that puffy white plus sign, just in the middle of that green, see how I'm moving it across? It changes shapes. Did you see that? Now what's going on? Puffy white plus sign is for selecting. We go to the middle of a cell and we click on it, and it selects the cell. We go to the middle of this cell and we click on it, and it selects the cell. But when our mouse crosses that green selection border, whether it's on one cell or whether it's on a whole bunch of cells. And I mean, do you see how easy it is to get off of it? If I'm a hair too high or a hair too low, right? Then it changes. I'm not doing this function anymore. But when I have this shape and I press and I keep that mouse button held down and I drag, do you see how I seem to have this green box stuck to my mouse? Well, as I move that green box around, I just took the content of that cell and I moved it. So what is a move? A move is simply cut and paste. That's all that it is. So that's kind of a fast way to move a piece of data that you say, oh, I didn't want that there. I wanted it over here. Now, you know, when I see this a lot, by accident, I'll see a student going, because you're dragging that finger right on the mouse pad, and somehow it picks that up. So you know how to undo, right? That's probably the most handy keystroke that we learned in our study of Word, and it works here too. Control Z to put that back. Okay? Sometimes you're like, I don't know what just happened. Undo, Control Z, put it back, right? So that is very precise with the mouse, but we're not done yet because we want to use autofill. So as I move my mouse down towards this lower right corner of whatever is selected, when I say whatever, it can be one cell, but remember puffy white, press, click, drag, I can select. It could be a group of cells. Whether it's one or whether it's a group, do you see that there is a notch? Let me go back and select just this one cell. There's a notch in the corner of this box. That notch is the autofill handle, and it specializes in finding patterns and repeating that pattern. You're going to love this. So when I move my mouse over that autofill handle, do you see that it changed from puffy white to powerful thin black plus sign? This black plus sign has the power. Now, word of caution, if you go up just a little, that's what I call four-sided arrow. Four-sided arrow, remember, that helped us to move that cell. And I don't want to move it, right? So if I am a little too high or a little too far to the left, I'm going to get four-sided arrow. I want powerful, thin black plus sign. With your mouse in that configuration, press, keep the mouse held down, drag. Now, do you see how it's not one square that's stuck to my mouse, but that it's starting to select, in essence, all those cells in that green border? And it's also displaying a little piece of information. That little piece of information is what it's going to put in the cell. In this case, let me finish. See? So I pressed and drug down. It said, I don't see a pattern. I see this number, 101, and so given that there's no sequential pattern, I'm just going to copy it. Well, that's not what we wanted. Let me scroll up just a little. So on this selection, whenever you select a group of cells, you're going to see this autofill menu. And when I put my mouse over that button, there's a little bitty drop down. See that? Oops, see that little arrow? These are my options. Click on that and look. One of my options, I've got fill series, fill formatting only. That might be cool if I just need the formatting. Fill without formatting, or flash fill. We'll talk about that later. Right now, we're going to fill the series. So that is a sequence. Series, sequence. And it said, oh, okay, 101. What do people commonly do? They increment by 1. 101, 102, 103, 104. Right? You know what other patterns Excel quickly recognizes? It will recognize Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. You know, it will recognize the months, January, February, March. It recognizes those, even if you don't start in the beginning, right? It recognizes those. Anytime you've typed, if I was going to type hat again down here, if I started typing HA, see, I just typed HA, it filled in the T because it's looking through this list of data and it's going, oh, I bet you're going to type hat. And if you are, you just basically hit enter at that point and it's done. Now, I don't want to type that, so I'm going to Control Z to undo. Okay, what we wanted, we have successfully accomplished, which is we selected this cell, we used this autofill option to copy down. We didn't want it just to copy, so we used our fill options to do the fill series. Okay, with that done, I'm going to go ahead and save, and let's go back to the instructions. Let's go to, that was step 3. Let's go to step 4. To motivate customers to buy more, you want to change 5% off to 10% off. So we're going to find all occurrences of what is 5%, but 0.05. Now I could say 0.05, but that doesn't really matter, that leading 0, right? And replace them with 0.10. Okay, let's go back. We've got some things to talk about. Back to Excel. Couple things. In Word, if we were to type 0.05, that is text. We are just, it's not even really a value. Word does not necessarily do math. We saw that it did some limited functions of that, but by and large, Word is expecting nothing but text. Excel understands the difference between numbers and text. It understands that the word hat is a word, it's letters, we can never do math with it. And it understands that number 2 is a number and that we can do math with it. So if we were in Word searching for something like 0.05, we would have to say search and replace 0.05. But Excel understands that this is a number. Okay, so we're going to search and replace, and we're going to treat it like a number. Now, if I'm going to do a search and replace, I'm going to start from the top, Control Home. When I'm at the top, where is my find and replace, right? Or find and select. Home tab, all the way here at the end. I'm going to use the replace function. Now, I'm just going to type 0.05. That's the same numerically. In Word, I might need to write 0.05. That could be different, right? But, 0.05, and then replace with what? 0.1. Isn't that the same as 0.10? Let's look. They told me to go ahead and replace all, so I'm just going to be brave and do it. It says they made one replacement. And if I look down, see where it made that replacement? So, okay, close. So we're learning that Excel understands text differently than it understands numbers, and so that's a good thing. We've learned a lot about selecting, moving, autofill. Let's save that. Let's go back to the instructions. That was step 4, on to step 5. Column C contains the cost of each product, and column D contains the markup rate. Using these values, you will calculate an amount for each product in column E. So they tell us what to do. In cell E5, enter a formula to calculate the markup, which is the result of multiplying the cost by the markup rate. Copy the formula then to E6 through E10. Let's go back to our worksheet. I'm going to begin by clicking in cell E5 so I can get my formula just right. This was step 5. So it says column C contains the cost. Column D contains the markup rate. Okay. Now, in column E, we're going to type a formula. And I can hear the fear and the responses of, I don't like math. No problem. This is the class for you because this is calculator on steroids. You want to know the most important trick that you need to know? It's how to turn on that calculator, right? How do you say power on? Well, look up here at my ribbon. Do you see how I've got all kinds of formatting things that I can do? I mean, I've got my font color, my fills, my bolds. I've even, looks like I can do conditional formatting conditionally, tables and inserting delete. Well, when I turn on my calculator, all that's going to go to gray because it understands like zzz, power up onto calculator. Here's how we do that. Type the equal sign. That's it. That's the whole thing. Zzz, did you feel the power? When you feel the power, look up at that ribbon. Look up at that. All that other stuff has power down formatting, power up math, right? Or calculator, or whatever you want to call it. All formulas, and 2 plus 2, folks, is a formula. All formulas begin with that equal sign. So always power on math by starting with that equal sign. Now, it said that, let's see, it's the result of multiplying the cost. So the cost is right here. I'm going to click on that. Now look at what my formula is. Instead of saying 7.95 times 1.095, I'm telling Excel, look, pick whatever value happens to be in cell C5. If it changes tomorrow, if it changes 30 seconds from now, whatever that value is, that's what you're going to use when you do the math. Then we're going to multiply, and we do that with the star symbol. So on your keyboard, it's probably Shift number 8. If you have a numerical keypad on the side, either one of those asterisks, the stars, even either one of them, it will be multiply. So equal sign, we clicked on C5, we put our little star there for multiply, and we're going to multiply by the markup rate. Excel is even color coding to make sure that we can clearly see. Okay, first of all, you did this one's in blue, and then you did this one, and it's in red. Okay, that is the entire formula. What do we do whenever we are finished typing into a cell in Excel? Hit the enter, and we kind of set it up. We go, that's what we want. Now, look at what Excel did. That's where the adding machine does the little ticker tape goes up and it says this is the answer. So this is the answer. If I click on that cell, here's the answer, but look what is really in that cell. This formula is really in this cell, not 8.70525. If you type that, you will get it wrong, and you will be using that brute force approach that we said is ultimately going to cost you time and probably job later on. Okay, so that, how hard was that? You can do that, and you feel the power, right? I hope you do. Here's the beauty of this. Don't do this, but just watch for just a second. What if tomorrow the cost of the hat is not 7.95? What if tomorrow the cost of the hat is $15? I've clicked in that cell, I'm typing 15, and as soon as I press enter, just look, don't do this, just look, look at cell E5. Did you see it recalculate? Immediately. So other people who are trying to use that brute force approach, they're like, let me get my cell phone, I got to 15 times 1.095, right? And they're doing all that. You're like, I've been done for, a minute here waiting on you. And they've got how many more products to do? You're done. Now, obviously, the hat price did not change, so Control Z to go back to the original. And just as quickly, it did that calculation again and put the markup, what was that markup amount, back to 8.7. So do you see? I'm clicking here, I'm looking here, I'm clicking here, I'm looking there. This is what those savvy Excel folks do. Now, we're going to get even more awesome with this powerful calculator. I mean, can you imagine if you're using your adding machine, if you're using your cell phone, now you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more that you have to calculate. But instead, you can use this autofill handle, the power of the black plus sign. So go from puffy white ever so carefully up on top of that autofill handle Not too high, that's four-sided arrow. Not too far to the left, that's four-sided arrow. Not too far to the right or below, it's puffy white plus sign. We need powerful black plus sign. With your mouse, looking like that. Oops, I'm sorry, my hand had to move. Press, keep the mouse held down, drag. Now here's the cool part. Yes, it did all that math for you, but what exactly did it do? Because that's the cool part. Well, when I was in row 5, it took the value of C5 and multiplied by D5. That's what we told it to do. But when I click on row 6, if I look up here, it was smart, and you're like, well, duh, it should take these values from row 6. It took C6 and D6. And when we go to row 7, you didn't even tell it to do this. It understood C7 times D7. And the savvy Excel user, when they copy a formula like this, will spot check so quickly. They will click in the cell, they'll look up at the formula bar. Click in the cell, look up at the formula bar. What they're doing is they're making sure that their formulas are correct. Now, the other thing you, of course, want to do is just give it the eyeball test. Well, this is an easy one. 5 times 2, is it reasonable that that's 10? Yes, it is, right? So we know that's good. I can ballpark some of these others. I could say 7 times 3 roughly here. I know that's about 21. These numbers are a little higher than 7, a little higher than 3. So would I believe that that's 22.4? It's reasonable, right? So it's another way that I'm just making sure that things make sense. Save that. Let's go back to the instructions. On to, let's see, we just finished step 5, on to step 6. Now that you've calculated the markup amount, you can calculate the retail price for each product. Okay, so in cell F5, enter a formula to calculate the retail price, which is the sum of cost and the markup amount. Copy that formula, F6 through F10. So let's go back to Excel. I'm in cell F5, and I need to use my calculator. Power up, feel the power, equal sign, there it is, right? Well, it said, this is what step am I on, step 6, to get the cost, just click it, whatever value is in cell C5. How do we add? We sum, we're going to use a plus sign, right? And then be really careful here, folks, the markup amount. That's in cell E5. E is in echo. This helps me. Okay, I can see my two cells and enter. Okay, so about $16.66. It's not formatted very nicely. But if I click on that cell again, I got to make sure that the cell that has the proper formula in it. I always start with just one formula, the very first formula. I always start with that beginning formula. It must be right, it must be ready to copy, and then we copy. That's going to continue to be more important as we go. With that first formula selected, the first one in the column, I'm going to use that fill handle. I'm going to get that powerful black plus sign, press and drag. I'm going to do my savvy Excel checking. Click here, but looking here. Click here, but looking here. Row 8, row 8, row 9, row 9. It looks like it's right. So I'm just double checking there, right? Also want to just give it kind of a basic, do I believe 8 plus 7 is 15? I do. Do I believe 5 plus 10 is 15? I do. So it's looking good. With that, I'm going to save. Back to the instructions. That was step 6. On to step 7. Each item is on sale this week. The sale price is X, some percentage, X% off the retail price. You need to calculate the sale price. So the sale price is some percent off of the retail price. Let's go back to the instructions. We're starting in cell, excuse me, H5. Click in cell H5. Now, I need to look at this for just a minute, right? Here's my retail price, this $16.65, 66, whatever. And then I know that right next to it, this is the percentage off that I'm going to calculate. But they didn't ask us how much money we're going to save. That's kind of like what you would ask as a shopper. And this is what I mean. If I was going to calculate, how much money am I going to save? I would turn on my math machine, power up with the equal sign, right? And I would say, I've got the $16 hat times, we know that that's the star, and I would say it's 15% off, right? And what it's telling me is that that's about $2.50 off. Well, that's not what I'm going to sell it for. And so what I'm being asked for here is the sale price. How much should I mark on the product to sell it? So let me delete that. I just selected the cell and I pressed the delete key. What I actually want is not 15%, but I want to say if 1665 is 100%, I'm not going to charge 15%, which leaves what, 85% left over. See if you follow me on this one. If it's 20% off of $61, then I'm going to charge the customer 80%. So not, 20% is what the customer is saving, right? If I look down here for this souvenir, if it's 25% off, then I'm charging the customer 75%. Now, how did I come up with that? Well, I just simply said, and I'm going to kind of do this in stages, I turned on my calculator and I said 100% is the same as the number 1, right? So 1, if I converted that to a percentage, would be 100, right? So 1 minus, and then this, which is a percentage, this 0.15. That is in essence how I came up with 85%. That's what I'm going to charge the customer. Now, I could, if I selected this, I could copy this down. There's my powerful black plus sign, drag it down, right? And there's 80% off. This checks out, right? Except that's not what they asked me for. So I'm going to go back to the very first formula, and I want to fix it to be the sale price. So when I select H5, I'm going to go back to my formula, and I want to multiply by the retail price, presumably 85% of the retail price. See what I did there? See any problems there? No, something is wrong. If I have to pay my customers $1.50 to take that hat, something is wrong. That is, in essence, what we have just calculated. So what went wrong? I'm going to take you back in time. This is my little whiteboard here, if you can bear with me. If you remember PEMDAS, did your math teacher call it PEMDAS? Or did your math teacher say, try to remember, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally? If they gave you one of those memory techniques, what they were trying to explain to you is that we read left to right, but we don't do math left to right. We do math in accordance to a hierarchy. Some things are first, some things are second, some things are third, right? So what happens first? Anything that we put inside parentheses happens first. Also, in Excel, if you have a percent symbol, that means multiply it by 100. It's not just for formatting. Okay, we're going to see that in a moment. But it does more. It's, if you put a dollar sign next to something, 100 with a dollar sign in front of it is still 100. A dollar with the number one with a dollar sign in front of it is still just $1. It's not $100. But the number one with the percent sign after it is 100%. So there's actually a little bit of math that goes on with that percent sign. So it does do math. That happens first. What happens next? Well, if we have to raise something to the second power, this to the 12th power, whatever it happens to be, that happens next. Then we're going to multiply, even if there is subtraction that happened further to the left. We read left to right, but multiply will always happen before addition, right? Before subtraction. So multiply, divide, that happens next. Addition, subtraction, that happens last. So where did we go wrong with our formula? See it down here. I'm going to use this as a kind of as a ruler so we can focus. Well, we're trying to pay our customers $1.50 to take away these daggum hats, right? we don't want to do that. It's because of our formula up here. So let me kind of move this up. When we said 1 minus G5, 1 minus 0.15, in our heads we said that should happen first because we're reading left to right. But according to our PEMDAS, according to our Please Excuse My Dear Aunt Sally, what happens first is multiplication. So it took the value in F5, which was like $16.66, and it multiplied that times 0.15, and then it subtracted that from 1. And that is not at all the same, is it? So how do we force this subtraction to happen first? We're going to put parentheses around it. Now, do you see that I am clicking exactly where I want to type? When I move my mouse into this formula bar, I get that I-beam, and the I-beam says click to type. Well, there's no sense in clicking way far out here if I know I'm going to type a parenthesis here. So I'm going to click as close as I can to where I'm trying to type. If you're struggling, you're using the pad on the laptop, you can also use your arrow keys to move around. With my flashing insertion point, we learned about that in Word, right where I want it, I'm going to open the parenthesis. Then you can click, you can use your arrow keys. I need to be right after the cell name G5. When I close the parentheses, watch Excel confirm. It's going to briefly flash those two parentheses. Do you see it briefly do a quick bold? It knows that if it has an opening parenthesis, it needs to have a closing one, and it's trying to line those up very quickly. It found its partner, and it said, okay, this I'm going to do first. Now that I have corrected that formula, I'm going to press the Enter key. That seems a little bit more reasonable, right? If the retail price is $16 and it's 15% off, then the sale price is about $14. Now that I have my first formula fixed, it's good, it looks reasonable. Now I'm going to use my fill handle, my powerful black plus sign, press and drag right over the top of those other formulas, and just double check what's that savvy person going to do? Click, check for parentheses. Click, I'm looking up here. Click, check for the parentheses. Click, yep, 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 yep. As I look at it, does it kind of pass the common sense check? Well, if the retail price was 15, 30% off 10, yeah, I'll go with that. Retail price roughly close to 30, 20, yeah, it looks right, right? It kind of passes the check. Save that. I told you this first chapter there's a lot to learn, and I hope that we're building your knowledge. I understand that, it doesn't mean that you remember everything perfectly. That's why we practice. That's why we practice. Let's go back to the instructions. What was that? That was step 7. Now, step 8 brings up that interesting point, because I see that they are talking about this cell, and you might say, is that cell 15? Is that cell 16? Cell 110? Oh my goodness. Nope, nope, nope. That is the letter because all cell names begin with a column letter. So that's the letter I. So what are we doing with step 8? The profit margin is the ratio of the net profit as a percentage of revenue. The formula first calculates the net profit between the sale price and the cost, and it divides that by the sale price. So in cell I5, we're going to enter a formula to calculate the profit margin. And we're going to copy that formula. Okay, so let's go to our Excel spreadsheet. And I need to zoom out just a little so that we can see. Okay, so here is I5, and let's look at our instructions again. They said the profit margin is the ratio of net profit as the percentage of revenue. The formula, they're telling us all formulas do what? All formulas start with an equal sign. That's how we power up math. So the formula first calculates net profit between the sale price and the cost. So here's my cost, and should I do cost minus sale price or vice versa? Well, cost will hopefully, should always be lower than how much we're selling it, right? So that means that if I subtract 14 from 7, I'm going to have a negative number. I don't think I want that. So I'm going to start by clicking sale price, and I'm going to subtract the cost, right? Now, again, I'm working this in stages. Most Excel users are going to think these things through one step at a time. Doesn't that kind of make sense? That here's my sale price, there's my cost, and yeah, that looks about, that $6 difference, right? But that is just the net profit. They said then we have to divide that by the sale price. So I have that cell selected, and I'm going to go back into my formula. I'm going to click at the very end because it said I need to divide this, and my division symbol is the /. On your keyboard, if you can locate the question mark, it's probably the, you don't have to shift. You just type that. Also, if you have a numeric keypad, it will have that /. But it said that we need to divide this by the sale price. Now, I see sale price is already used in our formula. That's okay. I can click on it again. That's all I did. And it puts it right up there. It understands to put it in there twice. So if I do click a cell twice, yes, it puts it into the formula twice. But do I even need to press the enter key to show you that we're going to have a problem? If I do, I'll press it. I might be tricked into believing that I have a $13 profit margin. That would be pretty good considering my sale price was $14. If you're just not giving it the common sense check, there's no error here, right? Excel just said you put these numbers into the calculator and I'm telling you what it does. But what did we learn? What's going to happen first? Division. So it took C5, divided it by H5, and in that case it took cost and divided it by the sale price. It took that little number and it subtracted it from H5, which is the sale price. Well, no wonder we got this huge profit margin. But that's not what we meant. What we meant was to first, see how I'm putting my parentheses in? Oops, make sure you don't accidentally delete part of your cell. Got to be really careful when you're editing that formula. Isn't that what I meant? There's my profit margin. Now remember, that's going to be a percentage, and so a 44% profit margin, that's good, that you're doing good, okay? Now, when I said I work these in stages, what I would probably do when I typed this is I would probably go ahead and put H5 minus C5 in parentheses. It's not going to hurt anything to have a formula that says equal H5 minus C5. And as I know I'm going to build on to that formula, it will help me group my thoughts. It helps me with clarity of understanding, and that is important. It's a communication skill. You're communicating with yourself if you're the one who maintains this spreadsheet over time. You're communicating with your coworkers who may use this spreadsheet, your supervisors, your bosses who may use this. It's a communication tool to clarify your equations with parentheses. Okay. There's my soapbox. I hope you will take heed of that. Now that we feel good about our formula, let's go ahead and use our thin black plus sign, that powerful black plus sign, press and drag. And again, just making sure we don't have, if I had something over the number 1, knowing that this is going to be a profit margin, it might be just a really fantastic profit margin, but if I had like 50, I would really be concerned. So these are looking good. What does the savvy Excel user do? Click, double look up there. Doop, yep, that row 8. Yep, yep, yep. Right? See how just quick checking. What are you checking? Row numbers. What are you checking? Parentheses. Is there a division sign? Does everything look okay? Right? Just real quick check. Save that. I believe that's all of that. Let's go back to the instructions. That was step 8. Let's continue on. Step 9. You decide to add a column to display the profit. Because profit is a dollar amount, you want to keep the profit column close to another column of dollar amounts. You'll insert a column for the profit amount and enter the column heading. So insert a new column I, not a column 1. This is column I, and enter profit amount in cell I4, not 14, I4. Here we are back, and it says, look, this is going to be sale price. This is going to be a percentage. So we really want our data to go right here. So to insert a column, let's watch that mouse change. I don't want puffy white plus sign. I want to be faster than that. So put your mouse all the way up on top of the letter I. When you do that, you will save yourself a step. When you right-click on column I, and did you see what my mouse looked like? Let me do that again. Let's say I'm just here. As I move my mouse up, did you see it change to downward pointing arrow? That means I'm all the way up on top of the column. Now, when I right-click, I get that menu. When I say insert, it already knows that I am talking about a column. So you save a step, I save a step, insert. If you right-click on the cell, you're going to have to answer extra question. But do you see how it scooted that profit margin right on over? Now, that was based on calculations. Those calculations are still intact. Our data is still looking good. So I didn't create any errors by doing that. Right? I just inserted the new blank column, and Excel figured everything else out so fast. If I click now in cell I4, it told me to enter profit amount, and as I'm typing, it might look like my typing is going across into cell J, but it's not. It's staying contained within that cell. So when I press my enter key, letting Excel know I'm done typing, notice it kind of chopped off there, but if I click, I see that everything is okay, and again in column J, everything is okay. The full text is there, is what I mean by everything's okay. Nothing was cut, everything is okay. It's accurate. All right, save that. Let's go back to the instructions. That, folks, was the last step of page 1. On to page 2, on to step 10. Now you are ready to enter the profit amount formula. In cell I5, enter a formula to calculate the profit, which is the difference between the sale price and the original cost. Copy that formula to I6 through I10. Back to our Excel. So we are in, so let me get to my correct instruction page here. In cell I5, make sure you've selected that. Enter a formula to calculate profit. I said the keyword formula, so I'm going to do some math. Let me power up my math machine with that equal sign. And it says it's the difference between sale price and original cost. Now, I want this to be a positive number. Profit is a positive number. And what I'm selling it for, this is the $14. So I'm clicking H5, right? I'm going to press my minus sign, my hyphen on the keyboard. And the original cost was way over here in C5. And I think this is one of the more simple formulas, right? Is that it? Press your Enter key. Do I agree that I made about a 6.2 profit? I'll agree with that. This formula is correct, so I'm going to select it and it's ready to copy. I'm going to keep that question in your mind. Is this formula ready to copy? That will be significant later. Move that mouse ever precisely over that fill handle, and here's a trick, double click. Remember earlier as we were navigating around that Excel could predict where the end of tables were, your table data? It knew based on the columns across the top. It understood these were going to be the rows of the table. So it's not going to keep calculating past those row labels and the column labels. When I double clicked the autofill, it recognized the pattern of where the table stopped and it filled it in. Savvy Excel user clicks and looks. Clicks and looks. Is it still H and C? Yes, it is. Is it row 7 now? Or is it row 6 now? Or is it row 10? Yes. Do these amounts seem reasonable? This is a big one down here, 19. Well, my sale price was $26. My original cost for that t-shirt was only $7. Yeah, profit amount $19 sounds pretty good. Let's save. Go back to the instructions. Step 11. You want to insert 2 rows for category names above their respective products. Then you want to delete the row containing the soundtrack CD. So insert a new row 5. So you got to pay attention to that. Insert a new row 5 and type apparel in cell A5. Insert a new row 8 and type souvenirs, and then we're going to do some more things. So let's jump into it. Let's just do it. It said insert a new row 5. Above, below, what's your interpretation? It makes sense if you know how to quickly insert a row. I'm going to put my mouse on top of the row, not in the cell, not close to the end of the cell, not close to the row. I know that I'm in the row when I have that sideways pointing arrow. The same way I knew I was in the column when I had a different mouse. I had the downward pointing arrow, right? Not in the cell. Go all the way over. My mouse is on way over on that row. Now that I'm over that row and I have the sideways pointing arrow, right click. This is going to give me that menu where all I have to do is click insert because it knows it's a row. Now it scooted everything down. So it put it above because this is new row 5. And in row 5, they told me to type apparel. And whenever I'm finished typing, excuse me, I press enter. They also wanted a new row 8. So I'm going to do that same thing. On the row, sideways pointing arrow, right click, insert. Click in cell A8, and they wanted us to type souvenirs. Do try to check your spelling. Be very careful. Souvenirs. Press enter. bold those words. So I'm going to click to select souvenirs. I am going to hold my control key down, and click apparel. Remember in Word, I had you do some mouse clicking where you clicked a first place and then you held Shift down and clicked another place. What that did is it selected everything from the starting point to the ending point. Control does something different. Control selects the first thing and it selects the second thing. And if you keep that control key held down and click 10 other things, it will select each one of those other 10 things. Okay? So control gives us the ability to select things that are not side by side, like these two cells. Then we just simply click bold, and they both bolded. Now we have one last part to this instruction. They want us to delete row 11. Okay, so I've bolded those. I'm just clicking away. Now here's row 11 with soundtrack. I'm going to put my mouse on the row, sideways pointing arrow, right click, delete. That row is gone. Save that, and let's go back to the instructions. Was that all of step 11? I think it was. So let's continue on. Row 12. Column A is too narrow for those product names. We want to increase the width, and in addition, we want to increase the height of the row. So we're going to increase the width of a column and the height of a row. Finally, we're going to decide to hide the product code column. Well, you know what you do if you want to hide a product code? You, in essence, are changing the width of that column to 0. Then it's hidden, right? Okay, a little trick that you are learning. So they give us the specific settings right here. Let's jump into the spreadsheet and let's do it. Now, again, I'm just going to click so I don't have anything personally selected. I want to adjust this column. Get your mouse on the column, not close to the column, on the column. Downward pointing arrow. Right click. Column width. And they told us 23. So 23 what's, it's hard to say. Not inches, pixels, something. So there's 23. That's what 23 looks like. And it made our column wider, but they also wanted us to adjust the height of the row. This is row 1. They want this title area to be bigger. So where is that mouse going to go? I'm here to tell you, all the way on that row. Sideways pointing arrow, right click, row height, 30. So that row is now taller than the other rows. Last part of this task is this column B. Apparently we don't necessarily want everybody looking at our codes. Maybe it just clutters our spreadsheet. So again, get your mouse all the way on top of column B. Downward pointing arrow, right click, hide. Now, do you see unhide? Do you wonder how you could unhide something that is hidden so you can't see it? So how can you unhide it? I'm going to tell you. Hide that column. Look at the top. Our column names now skip around, don't they? Instead of ABC, something's missing. We would see the same type of thing in the rows where the row number, if it was hidden, if a row is hidden, the numbers will skip. Doesn't mean that the data was deleted. The data is still there. It just means that we have effectively changed that column width to 0. Now, when I move my mouse across that column, I actually get a couple shapes. If you see, let me do this. Let me go between columns C and D. Do you see this? I call this two-sided arrow. If you see two-sided arrow, what this is about is if I press and drag, I'm actually expanding the width or oops, I'm sorry. Yeah, or closing the width of that column. Now, I don't want to do that, so Control Z to put that back and Control Z again to put it back to where it was. That was two-sided arrow. But when I drag my mouse, do you see now I have two-sided arrow, but I have two lines. So two lines, two-sided arrow. I got that column. That is so precise, and I could grab that column and I could pull it right back out there. That's good to know, which is why I show you that. But that's not what we're going to use. Control Z, put that, I'm sorry, Control Z, put that back. If I have a column or several columns that are hidden, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select multiple columns. I do that by putting my mouse up on top of the column, downward pointing arrow. When I do that, I can drag to select multiple columns. The columns that I want selected are the column before whatever's hidden and the column after. If I have those two columns selected, then when I keep my mouse up high on top of those columns and right click, then I could unhide and that column would pop right back out to whatever width it was at before I hit it. Okay? Now, I don't want to do that because our instructions didn't tell us, but I think that's important. If they're telling you to hide things, you want to, right at this point of learning, also know how to unhide. So Control Z, it's tucked away, nice and hidden now. That was the end of step 12. Let's go back to our instructions and on to step 13. The t-shirt product is below the souvenirs heading that we added. This product belongs in the apparel section. So you will move the t-shirt product row to be above the souvenirs heading. So we're going to select the range A11 through J11. And we're going to, it says we're going to select it and cut it, I'm sorry. And then we're going to insert those cut rows to row 8. What you would not want to do is retype all that information. You'll be here until 5 hours after everybody else has got home and you won't get overtime, right? We don't want that. That's a bad deal. So let's go back. We're going to cut A11 through J11 and we're going to insert that on row 8. Let's go back. Scroll down a little bit. I might need to make this just a little smaller. Yeah. And they told me select A11. I'm just dragging across to J11. True or false? Is A11 selected? Hope you give me a big T on that one. That's true. How do we know? Because the green border. Do we look at the shading? No, we do not. No, we do not. We're going to look at that green border, and it goes all the way around. So we know we have that selected. They told us to cut. You know, I like to right-click, but if you want to come up here, let's do cut. And they said on row 11, not in a cell on row 11. So get that mouse on row 11, right-click, look at this option, Insert Cut Cells. Click that. And look at that. It took that data we had selected, and yes, it put it in row 8, but it moved everything else down. It inserted it, and by inserting it, it moved souvenirs and mug and souvenir program down. And you know what else? It moved all these calculations down. And Excel was so smart, it said, you know what, if I was calculating C10 and E10 a minute ago, better update that to C11. When we inserted, column I, it understood that in the profit margin that it needed to make adjustments. Excel does that automatically. You don't have to recalculate. It keeps your formulas straight if they're set up correctly. We're going to keep talking about that. So you're learning in leaps and bounds, folks. And I hope you're learning, but that you're also going, wow, this is like amazing. Why didn't I know this a month ago when I was trying to do a chemistry report or, do some data for history, right? Because you can copy and paste these tables into Word. So cool. Okay, let's get back to business. Was that the end of step 13? It was. So go back to our instructions. Step 14. The travel mug product information is missing. Because it is similar to the mug data, you will copy and paste the mug data and then edit that basically to create your travel mug record. You're going to save yourself a little typing by copying and pasting. So we're going to copy A10 through J10. We're going to paste it into, this time they give us a cell. This time they did not tell us to put it on the row. They said we're going to paste into A12. Now, look, if I have multiple cells, A10, B10, C10, D10, blah, 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 right? It doesn't all fit in one cell. We don't want that. Word will actually try to do that, and it doesn't always, it's not a tool for tables. Excel gets it. Excel goes, look, if you're going to copy all of this and you're going to start in this cell A12, then when it's time to paste, I understand I have to go across those other cells. So we're going to do that. After we paste, we're going to enter into cell A12, travel mug, and in cell C12 we're going to enter 7. So we're just going to kind of make some updates. So let's do that. I am going to select A10, get my mouse over here, A10, all the way across to J10. I am going to copy. You know you can right click and copy. And I'm going to go to cell A12. Now, one caution. I told you that it will go ahead and fill in across, you know, A, B, even column B. Even though column B was hidden, it was selected when you drug across all that. So it is copying the data from cell B10. And when we go to paste this, it will paste. Here's the caution. If you have two cells selected, because you're just a sloppy selector, don't be a sloppy selector. If you do this or this or this or something and you start to paste, now you've told Excel something different. You, with one cell selected, you say to Excel, you have the freedom to paste wherever you would like to paste, take up as much room as you need. If you try to go ahead and select, because you're a sloppy selector, okay, if you do that, then you constrain Excel. You say fit it precisely into what I've selected. And if it doesn't fit just right, then Excel will go, no, you give me 3 cells to paste in 20 cells of data? I don't think so. I'm not doing it, right? Too constrained, too tight. Same if it's too big of a space, it will start repeating data. So if you truly mean just fill this in, make sure you have only one cell selected. Don't be a sloppy selector. So I've got cell A12 selected, and I'm going to paste. And it said, and it filled the rest on in. Exactly what we wanted. Let's save. Now we're cooking with gas now, right? We got to make some changes though. I'm sorry, this was step 14, and they said, look, now in cell A12, don't say mug, say travel mug. So I could go up to the formula bar. Absolutely can do that. You can also double click in the cell. Now, if once I'm in there, you see my insertion point flashing, I'm going to just arrow so that I'm over to the very beginning, and I'm going to type travel space. So I've got that. Now, thinking ahead, folks, I know I'm getting ready to go over one cell, so instead of pressing enter, press tab. One thing I want you to understand is that when you finish typing in a cell, you can't just stop and say, okay, it's done. You have to take an affirmative action to confirm the cell. 9 times out of 10, that's enter, but if you know you're filling a table out like this, then tab, tab, tab every time you finish entering in data. In cell C12, which is where I tabbed over to because B is hidden, enter 7. The number 5 is there now. If I just type 7, it will delete the 5. It gets rid of it. It's gone. 7, enter. That's all I typed. When I hit enter, did you notice the cell that Excel selected? Didn't you think it was going to go down here to cell C13? No, because it saw the pattern. You were doing data entry and you went from A to C. So it goes, okay, you're going to do A to C, A to C. You're going to keep typing. Here's a product, here's a cost, here's a product, here's a cost. So it went ahead and anticipated that, and it put the selected cell as A13. This is a smart computer. It's trying to read your mind, right? It's just looking at the patterns and it's trying to predict. All right, let's save that work. Need to save as we go. Back to the instructions. That was step 14. On to step 15. You want to experiment with paste options. So in cell A1, we're going to apply bold, 14-point font, and make it a dark red color. And then we're going to copy the range of A1 through J12. I believe that is our entire table, I'm pretty sure. And paste the whole table in cell A20. But we're not just going to paste it. We're going to paste it as values and source formatting. We want all of our hard work to come with us. Let's do that. Here we are. We're going to cell A1. Control Home if you'd like, or just click right there. And it said apply bold, apply 14-point font, and apply a dark red font color. Now that looks like light red, so let me look at my drop-down box. Here in my standard colors, yeah, it's that very first one is a dark red. Got it. Is that all of that? Let's save that so far just so we don't mess up. Now, I'm going to select, when I select from A1, to J12, looking ahead, here's J12, right? You know, I don't need to touch with my mouse every cell. I see students do that. You don't need to do that. You just need to go from the top corner to the bottom corner. And that's a very efficient way. Puffy white plus sign. We got to give it some credit. It's smart too. And we just click. Now don't be clicking right here because you know what's going to happen, right? Get up here, get some confidence. Get up here in the middle of that cell. Press and drag all the way to the end. If you want, do it the other direction. Either way. Do you believe, true or false, that cell A1 is selected? I don't even think I can fool you anymore. It's hard to see that green box, but it is, right? It is selected. We just clicked, that was the first cell, and we did a drag. If you're not sure, I have had situations where sometimes more difficult. Let me just click because that deselects. Start at the other end. Here I can more clearly see that green edge going around because that's what I go by, not the shading. Now I've got all that selected. I'm going to click the copy button. And, I'm going to paste in cell A20, but I want to see what I'm doing. So I'm going to zoom out so that you can see. Let me kind of get far out here. I'm going to click down here in cell A20. Now, as I go to paste, they told me we're going to explore some options. So there is the paste button, which is just a regular paste, but the lower half of that button is a drop-down arrow. And when I look through, I encourage you to look through this. And I haven't clicked anything, but as I hover, can you see that Excel is previewing what it would look like? Which that's a pretty cool feature because I might decide, if I want values only, this is what it's going to look like, right? But if I go across, I'm under paste values. That third button under paste values is values and source formatting. That's the one I want, paste. Now do you see how it copied the table? It's there, it's got my values, which we're going to look at in a moment, and it's got my formatting, the red, the font size. I even see that apparel is bolded and souvenirs is bolded. One of the things I want to share with you is something that drives some folks crazy. Marching ants. Do you see the little, dots going here? even when I click and I've finished pasting and I'm trying to go about my business, those marching ants are still there. And people go, stop those marching ants. How do you stop the marching ants? Your simulation actually at one point says press the escape key. And I'm not sure that if you're not paying attention, you won't understand why they asked you to do that. It's to stop the marching ants. If you press escape, the marching ants will stop. So if they drive you crazy, just press escape. Now, when we did that copy and paste, we said paste values and formatting. So up here, let's pick sale price. That was a calculated value. So if we were to copy and paste under regular, just plain copy paste, that would copy the formula. Okay, and it would update the formula as we have copied formulas before, right? We would expect it to update the formula. What did it do in my copy? Here's H25. Here's that same 1440. Uh-oh. I click here. I look up here. No formula. Value. When I did the copy and paste, I told it values. And so it took the results of the formulas, whichever formula it happens to be, and it said, I only want the value there. You oftentimes have a need to do that. You may do some calculations, but you know that you're going to change these numbers each month, but you want to preserve last month's information. So you can copy the values into another tab or something to kind of preserve that. Okay, so we did copy values and the formula results. The formulas were deleted and the results are all that pasted. Okay, let's save that. Let's go back to the instructions. That was back to the instructions. That was step 15. On to step 16. The worksheet title, let me scroll up a little bit. The worksheet title should stand out prominently on the worksheet. Select A1 through J1 and apply heading 1 style. And we remember styles from from Word. Then we're going to merge and center the data, and we're going to apply middle aligned vertical alignment. Okay, once again, we're getting into that horizontal alignment and vertical alignment. Very easy in Excel. You're going to like it, as it was in Word. Let's go back to Excel. It said select cell A1 through J1. And we're going to apply a style. So we know those are on the Home tab. Sure enough, I see them in this little grouping. I need to see more of these, so I'm going to expand this box. And do you see down here titles? This is heading 1. I'm going to click that. I'm going to click away just so that you can see it. Now, right now, I can click and select J1, I1, H1. These are all individual cells. But I'm going to select that again so that we can continue working. It says merge and center the data. So on my Home tab, in this alignment group, I see merge and center. If your screen is small, let me change this. You might only see the icon. See how it collapsed and the words, the label went away? So what you want to do is see that square, that's the maximize. Make sure that that is maximized. Makes it easier for you to see. Still works the same if you can only see that button. That's fine, right? So merge and center. I'm just going to click squarely on that. What just happened? Well, look for the lines in between those cells. Do you see that they're gone? Try to select, like I did a minute ago, I1, J1. I can't. I can only select A1 because this cell has merged with those other cells to become only cell I1. So they're all merged together. Additionally, because it's a common practice, it centered the text. if I need to change the alignment of that text, also in this alignment group, I have these buttons. And what these lines are trying to show me is these lines look like they're at the top of the button. These lines look like they're in the center. These at the bottom. And do you see that it's selected and the text is at the bottom? These three show me vertical alignment. This was this was vertical alignment. This is horizontal alignment. These are at the left. This one that's selected is at the center, these lines. These lines are at the right. Okay, so you can see it's centered. We could click one of the other buttons if we wanted. They want us to focus on the vertical alignment and see how the text is sitting at the bottom of the cell, as this button indicates. They want us to choose middle align. So I just simply click that. And did you see the text jump up just a little bit? It's now in the center of the cell. Okay, let's save that. Back to the instructions. That was step 16, on to step 17. The column headings on row 4 should be formatted to improve the appearance of the worksheet. We're going to select A4 through J4. We're going to horizontally center, apply bold, and wrap the text headings. So we're going to do some wrapping. Cool. Okay, so this is what it said. Select, I'm all the way down to step 17 already. That's amazing. A4 through J4. Those are our column headings. And it said to center horizontally. Remember, that's this one. See how they all jumped into the center of their cells? It's kind of hard to see because if I zoom in, now notice I'm not formatting this one below, right? I'm only formatting the table at the top. Let me zoom in a little bit. As I zoom in, it's centered the text. It's really getting hard to read now because the columns are not wide enough. So what can I do? Well, I could make the columns wider. If I do, they'll start to run off the paper. So when I go to print it, you know, columns, profit margin and profit amount might be on the next page and it'll look funny. So I want to, in this case, maybe I prefer to keep my columns as they are, but I sure wish that text would come down to the next line within that column. So that's what we're going to do. I've got cell A4 through J4 selected. Above the merge and center is my wrap text. Again, something that confuses students, so this hopefully helps your success. See an alignment? Well, here was my merge and center. And if you can see A, B, and C is wrapped down to the bottom, that's the wrap text button. When my screen is full screen, when Excel is full screen, I can more easily see that this is the wrap text button. Click that. Watch my column labels as I click it. Oh, so much nicer. Doesn't that look nice? So, what did we forget? We selected... Oh, I did not bold. Did you bold? Make sure you bold. Bold. So horizontally center, apply bold, wrap the text headings, and save. Let's go back to the instructions. That was step 17. Look at us go. We're on to step 18. To distinguish the product names from the category headings, apparel and souvenirs, you'll indent the product names. So we can do that. Now look at this. They're telling us select this range and that range and then indent the product names twice. We could first select this range and indent, then select this range, indent, but we are so savvy, we're going to do it all in one go. Back to Excel. We are going to select what they tell us again, A6 through A8, not A9. Don't do that one. So how am I going to select things that are not side by side? Control key. With my control key held down, press and drag over that second selection. Select the first thing, then hold your control key down. Keeping it held down, select the second thing. There you go. Do you believe, true or false, that cell A10 is selected? Yes, it is. Cannot fool you guys anymore. I know it. I can hear you out there. All right, so how do we indent? We're still working in this align box. We are just learning everything here. Here's our indent, decrease and increase indent. See our indent buttons? We want to increase the indent twice. Click once, click twice. Both of those sets of product names scooted right over. Looks good. Save it. Go back to the instructions. On to step 19. Folks, we're almost at the end of page 2. Let's do it. You want to apply a fill color to highlight the column labels. In addition, you want to draw attention to the sale information by adding a border. So they're telling us very specifically here what we need to do. So let's just go ahead and do it. Let's see, where am I? We're going to select cell A4 through J4, our column labels, and we're going to apply a blue-gray. This was weird to me, blue-gray text 2, but it's a fill. It's not a text color, it's a fill. Blue-gray text 2 lighter 80% is the name. So we're filling this in. This is my paint bucket. Drop down. And let's see if I can remember. They tell me here, don't they, that it's the second row, fourth column. Yeah, there we go. Blue-gray, text 2, lighter 80%. Select that. Now, remember how I've been keep quizzing you to say, is that first cell selected and it's not grayed in or shaded? This is why. Do you see how these look very dark? And if I pick that color and I look at it, I might go, oh, that's way too dark. Except that I can see what it actually is going to look like here without having to click away and select again. Otherwise, I'd constantly be picking a color, clicking away to look at it, picking a color, selecting again, picking a color. Since the first cell that I select does not get that shading, that darker tint to it, I can just see the true color a little more clearly. That's the reason. We know to go by the green box that goes around the text. All right. Let's see, we're not done yet. Now we have to select G4 through H12. Feel like I'm playing bingo. G4 through H12. And we're going to apply a border because we want to draw some focus to this. And specifically, we're going to apply something called a thick outside border. So now we're in the font group. We just used our shading bucket. Immediately to the left, you see this icon with those cells. It's trying to show you a grouping of cells. There is a tiny drop-down box next to that button. Find thick outside borders. So that was from that little bitty drop-down arrow. Thick outside borders. When I pick that, it's hard to see right now, isn't it? So in this case, you do need to click away someplace. That deselects. You just try to click in a safe place. And look, it's added. Now when I look at that, my eyes are immediately drawn to % off sale price, right? I just hone right in on that. So they put that box there. There is a note for Mac people to apply thick box border. So make sure that you take heed of that. Let's save then. Windows and Mac users united. Some folks are, I like to say, multilingual. You speak Mac and you speak PC. It's always good, right? We saved. We're back to the instructions. On to page 3. I am excited, but it is still a very long page, so we're just going to do these instructions one at a time. You want to display dollar signs for the money values to improve readability. They have us select several ranges. Folks, read these carefully. I made mistakes the first time I went through these instructions. Let's just be honest, and admit that. So I get in a hurry. I don't read it correctly. I saw E6, then I thought it was E6 through E12. But notice that that's an F, Okay, notice that this is H6 through I12. So in this case, one column, but in both of these other cases, you're going across two columns, and we're going to apply the accounting number format. That's a very specific way that accountants tend to format numbers. So let's do that. Back to Excel, and I have to look at this carefully so I don't make mistakes again. C6 through C12. Okay, with that selected, I'm going to do this all in one go. I just have to. I'm going to be efficient. Hold my control key down. The next range is E6 through F12. Press and drag, keeping the control key held down. Right? Select, hold your control key down. Select the next part. You can let up from everything if you need to, but before you do anything with the mouse, I want you to hold the control key down again. And then they said H6 through I12. So you might want to look at the screen so that you can see what needs to be selected. With all of those numbers selected, look in your number group on your Home tab. See how it says General right now? That's why the numbers are displaying just as general numbers. If you click on that drop-down box, you can see Accounting, and I'm going to pick that. All the numbers are, first of all, displayed with 2 places after the decimal. Now, believe it or not, if you're you don't always do that. You know, you might have a situation where you're dealing with millions of dollars, and if you're dealing with millions of dollars, nobody cares about 21 cents. Okay, so but normally accountants are going to show those 2 places after the decimal. Another exception might be gas prices, which are actually 3 places after the decimal. If you are playing around with any of like stock market values, if you're monitoring those values are 3 places after the decimal. By default, this is 2. Notice the dollar sign. Notice it's not next to the number, but instead it's very neatly aligned over next to the edge of the column. That helps the accountant be very accurate with those numbers. I'll tell you another hint. Let's take one of these numbers. I'm going to click in this one. Do not do this, just watch. And I am going to type a little negative sign before my cell value. You see that? Negative H6. This is how an accountant would display a negative number. They put it in parentheses. The reason why is because a little bitty minus sign would be easy to overlook as I'm scanning lots of numbers. But parentheses is going to jump out at me, right? Oh, that's negative. I can quickly see that. Oftentimes color is used. Negative numbers will be in red. Here's the problem. If I print off this beautiful report to my laser printer, it's probably going to be in black and white. If I print it off to my inkjet, maybe I have a color laser printer because I'm, doing good, right? Wealthy, I don't know. What's probably going to happen is somebody's going to take that report, put it on the copier machine. The copier machine is most probably black and white, and you're going to lose that red formatting. So if you use color, make sure that you are keeping the parentheses, which is a good business tactic. Okay. Now, I did make that negative. Control Z. Let's put that back to a positive number. Okay. I just wanted to show you that as part of the features of this accounting format. Save that, back to the instructions. Okay, so that was step 20. Step 21, the markup rate and the profit margin values should be formatted with percent signs with 1 decimal place. Now, folks, I see that it says formatted with the percent signs, and indeed that formatting will display. But we know, what do we know? We know that it is also a mathematical operator. It is going to multiply those values by 100 when we apply that formatting. It's okay because we're expecting that. Where you run into problems is if you've already typed, I don't know, like 10 in the cell and you go, oh, I'm sorry, I meant 10%. And so you go back and you add that percentage. Now it's 1,000%. Okay. So don't do that. Don't do that. Be aware that it's more than formatting. It's a mathematical operator. Okay. It tells us what to select. And so let's just jump in and do it. It tells me to select D6 through D12. I am also going to hold my control key down and select J6 through J12. These will be formatted as percentages. Let me just make sure I'm in the right spot. So up here, notice that it's very quick. I've got a little percent button there. And look at that. Now, did I get the right? Oh, yeah, no, I did. D6. Oh, okay, yeah, my markup. So I'm marking these up. Look at this. Markup on a t-shirt, 316%. Okay. And here's my profit. Good profit on that t-shirt. Yeah, but we expect that, right? Based on that markup. Okay. Okay. We're not done yet because it did say that we need to increase the decimal point. We want to show one digit to the right of the decimal. Now, remember the indent buttons. These look similar. They're down here in the number, but I always get confused because the order is kind of flip-flopped in my opinion. This very first one is increase. So click one time. Since I still had all of those selected, I did all that formatting one time and got all of those cells. Now, am I done with that? Yes. Save. Back to the instructions. Step 22. The percent off should be formatted, also with percent signs and centered in the column. So we're going to select that style, apply the percent, which is more than a format, and then we're going to horizontally center. That's why they had us do this separate. G6 through G12, and we're going to apply that percent, which multiplies by 100, right, and displays the percent sign. And we're not adding a decimal place. We're just going to leave it like this, and we're going to center horizontally. There we go. They just prefer the way that looks. As long as my numbers line up and are still easy to read, that's what's important. Save that. Go back to the instructions. Right? That was, what was that? That was step 22. On to step 23. You want the percentages in column J to align better below the column label. Okay. Select the range J6 through J12, and we're going to apply right horizontal alignment, and then we're going to increase the indent. Now here's a brain teaser for you. When things are aligned to the left and I indent, they move to the right, towards the right. Right? We add space on the left. If they're aligned to the right and I add indent, it will add space to the right, thus forcing it left. So let's see what happens. Go back to our Excel spreadsheet, J6 through J12, and it said it wanted to align right. So we're talking horizontally, right and left, align right. But then it said we need to increase indent. So are you looking at J6 through J12? I'm going to click the indent one time. It scooted them off. It indented from the right margin. And I think we just did that one time, right? Indent one time. Save that. Back to the instructions. On to step 24. You want to copy the results to another worksheet and display formulas on the duplicate worksheet. Okay. Copy sheet 1, move the duplicate to the right of sheet 1, rename the sheet as September, rename the other sheet as formulas, and then display the formulas on the formulas tab. Okay. You got this. This is going to be great. You're going to like this. All right. Down in the lower left corner, I can see that this file has one sheet in it. We say it is an Excel workbook that contains one Excel worksheet. Okay? When I put my mouse on top of the tab, and folks, I see this mistake all the time. On top of the column means on top of the column, on top of the row, on top of the actual row number, the column. When I say on top of the tab, don't be up here in the cell. There's something students get intimidated and they don't want to move their mouse as if these other parts are poison, not interactive, right? They are. And you only can take advantage of that if you're kind of bold enough to get that mouse down on top of that tab, out in that row, up on top of that column, right? Be bold, be fearless. On top of that tab, fearlessly, right click. On top of the tab, we get this menu, and the menu says, okay, you're talking to tab? What you want to do with tab? I'm tab, tell me what you want. Okay, so tab says move or copy. That's what, of all these, we can rename all kinds of things. Right now, move or copy. Two things, one option, move or copy. The first thing I do when I come to this box, if I know I'm going to copy, is I check this create a copy. If I don't do it right now, I will forget. So we don't just want to move, we want to copy, create a copy. Now, look at this. Where are we going to copy it? And by default, it is going to pick the only sheet, which is sheet 1, and it's before. Well, the instructions said we need to put it after. So that means before the end. It always puts it before, but we want it before the end. Click OK. All right, here's those two sheets they were telling us about. Sheet 1, and since the two sheets can't have the same name, it just put a little 2 right there. Okay, so they told us to rename these. Now, I could right-click and choose rename from that menu option, but you're faster than that, because you know all you have to do? I'm going to go back to sheet 1 because I'm just going to start there because it just makes sense to start with 1 and then go to 2. It said call this September. Double click on that name. See how it's selected that? Now that it's selected, I can edit that. What do we do whenever we're finished typing in Word? Enter. Okay, let's do it again. Double click on this other tab. Do you see how I double clicked? What are we going to call this one? Formulas. What do I do when I finish typing? Press Enter, always. Okay. Now those two tabs are kind of set up, but we're not done yet. The very last part of that instruction on 24 said display formulas on the Formulas tab. So I want you to make sure that you are on the Formulas tab. These look exactly alike right now, so we really have to pay attention. Now, in your text, they navigated you through, like here's how you display the formulas. And this is what they mean. When I look at, for example, sale price, in my worksheet, and if I printed this right now, what would print is not the formula, but the result. Well, those formulas can be very important. I'll give you an example. At the end of the semester, when I turn in your grades, and I use an Excel spreadsheet, and it says, I need to submit to the college, the instructions say, how was this grade calculated? Well, they can say so-and-so got an A. They can even see on the worksheet that so-and-so got a 93, right? But how did you come up with that number? So I need to display my formulas. How did you come up with this revenue? How did you come up with this profit? These are very important questions that businesses are answering all the time. Well, you can navigate to change your view of this worksheet, or you can use the keystroke that I use all the time, and I'm going to share it with you. Across the top of your keyboard, do you see those numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 0? Look at the number 1, at the numbers that are across the top. To the left of number 1, do you see a key that looks like it's got like an apostrophe, and if you were to shift, it would use the tilde? Find your number 1 key, and the key I'm talking about is to the left of that. Okay, it's that little apostrophe tick mark. Hold your control key down and press that key. When you do, it changes your view of the worksheet, and if you printed, it prints like this. It shows the formulas. If you want to switch back, you just do that exact same thing again. Control tick apostrophe, what do you want to call that? Apostrophe key? That toggles back and forth between showing the formulas, and if I do it again, showing the results. If you print showing the results will print on the page. If you toggle and print showing the formulas will show on the page. Isn't that quick? Bam! Don't have to click, don't have to remember how to navigate through about 3 or 4 different menu. Just keyboard quickly change, right? Okay, I hope you like that. I use that, oh goodness, I use that all the time. So that was step 24. I'm going to save that. Let's go back to the instructions. That was step 24. Let's go on to step 25. To prepare the formulas worksheet to print, the column width should be changed. You notice they were really big, right? Okay, they tell us the dimensions, and so let's do it. Go back to the Excel worksheet, and it said column A should be 12. So where is my mouse? Up on top of that column, all the way up on that letter A. Column width, 12. Enter. Columns, remember column B is still hidden, and it is still hidden here. Columns C and D, so I'm going to drag over both of them. I'm not going to press and drag until my mouse is up on top of those columns. Press, drag on top of column C and D. And then right click, still with my mouse up there. Don't move that mouse down. You got to keep it over those column names. Column width. Set that to 6. Enter. Those are at 6 now. Now look at this next group. E, F, H, I, and J. Who was not included? G, right? I'm going to scoot over just a little so we can see. Okay, so get my mouse up on top of E, the downward pointing arrow, press, drag over F. I could just set those two, but I'm going to let up. I'm going to hold off my mouse. I'm going to hold my control key down, get my mouse back up on top of H. Control key is still held down. Press and drag on top of those columns, H, I, J. So we're using that same technique. Select, hold the control key down, keeping it held down, select. Okay, so that way we get these non-adjacent columns. Put my mouse on top of any of those columns, right click, column width, 7, enter. Just adjusted all of those. And finally, column G, here it is. Just put my mouse up there, right click, column width, 5, press enter, save. That, my friends, is step 25. Save that really good. And let's go back to our instructions. So we did step 25, on to step 26. We're getting there, folks. We're getting there. It's just a little bit further. Step 26. Because the worksheets contain more columns than row, it'll look better in landscape. That's when we take our paper that is normally like this, up and down, that's portrait, and we turn it so that it prints like that. Landscape, like we have giant hills going across, right? We want to get the full landscape in. So let's do that. Oh, it says, I'm sorry, as part of this instruction, it says select both worksheets and change the orientation. So we're going to do them both at the same time. Let's go back to Excel. Now, I'm just going to click so that something, just one cell is selected. And I must caution you that with great power comes great responsibility, superhero friends. And so if you accept this great superhero power, you accept this great superhero responsibility. One of your worksheet tabs is selected. You're going to select both tabs at the same time. That means that you are working in both worksheets as if they are stacked on top of each other and a piece of carbon paper. Is that too way back for y'all? Have you ever gotten a multi-part form where you write your name on the top of the form and it goes through to all the other parts of the form? That's carbon paper. That's what we're doing. In other words, once you have both of these two tabs selected, if you had 10 tabs selected, whatever you do to one of those worksheets that is selected, all the others will make the exact same change, even if it doesn't make sense. If you delete something from one worksheet when they are connected or grouped, it will delete not the same information. It will delete, let's say, the same row, the same column from all selected worksheets. If you insert, if you type, if you bold, if you put a font size or a color, it will apply to all of them. So with great power comes great responsibility and kind of great fun too. So let's just take a look at it. I have my formulas worksheet selected. I'm going to hold my, let's say, shift key down. I could do control in this case if I want, because there's only two worksheets, and select September. Now, do you see how they're both highlighted? And what this means is that they are grouped. If I click in, I'm just going to say cell D15. Let me even zoom out a little bit, or scoot over, I'm sorry, and zoom out. If I click in cell D15, and don't do this, just watch me, okay? And I say, you know what, I'm going to make this cell yellow, kind of a gold yellow. I'm going to make the font red. I'm going to type hello in the cell, right? And oh, and there's one effect we haven't looked at yet, which is this cell, which turns things kind of at an angle. Isn't that kind of cool? Okay, guess what happened? It did it on both. So I was on the formulas tab, right? And both of them are selected. If I right click, they were grouped. You see how I can ungroup? Now they're ungrouped. Only one tab is highlighted. If I switch to September, look, formulas, look. But do you see how it did that to both of these? Okay, so whatever you do to one, it will happen to the other when they are grouped. And it doesn't matter which one you're working on, it will happen to the other. So what do I need to do? Undo, undo, undo. I'm doing a series of Control Z's right now, okay, just to make sure I'm kind of back to where I started. So hopefully I haven't messed anything up, but if so, the grader will take off some points for me, but I want you to see that. So with great power comes great responsibility. Formulas tab is selected, holding my shift key down, selecting September. Let's actually get down to business and do the work. I know this video is getting long. We were just going to change the orientation of the paper. So up at the Home tab, Page Layout, Orientation, Landscape. And it did it to both of them. We can't really see it right now, but we will. I'll show it to you as we progress. Make sure you save that, and let's go back to the instructions. Step 27, you continue to apply page setup options to prepare the worksheets to be printed if needed. You don't print anything to give to me in this class, so don't give me any paper. Everything you submit is electronic. With both sheets still selected, like we have them, we're going to set a 1-inch top margin and some other options. So let's just get to it. Both sheets are still selected, and we're working with the page setup. So I'm still on the Page Layout tab. And in this box, you can, if you want, go through each button individually. I find it super convenient to use this page launcher. I go into this all the time. Okay. On this page button, first of all, page tab, I'm sorry. First of all, do you see that there's multiple tabs? And here I could have changed from portrait to landscape here. So I could have done that. But it also says we need a 1-inch margin. So that's going to be under the margins tab. I'm going to increase, see all my margins, left, right, bottom. I can even control how big the header and footer are inside of those top and bottom margins. On this same margins tab, they want us to center the page horizontally. And they also want us to scale this to fit so that each page fits neatly on one piece of paper. So if we go back to page, this is the coolest feature that Excel has. This is awesome. Right now it's going to print at 100%. And I'll show you a little something that could easily escape notice. As we went into page setup, this dotted line appeared between columns H and I. And this dotted line means that we've run out of paper. So even though we turned our paper landscape, the columns are too wide and it's going to run off the end. But just by a little. And rather than tweaking and tweaking and tweaking the worksheet, I'm going to let Excel figure out how to resize that and force it to fit. All I have to do, this is so cool, is click Fit To, and notice it says 1 by 1, right? 1 by 1. And I could click OK. I'm just going to go ahead and click Print Preview so that you can see it. This is if I was going to print right now. And look at this. Remember, we copied this from the top to the bottom. So this is our September page. We can't really tell that right now, can we? It's kind of hard to understand. And then if I go to page 2, this is our formulas page, and it shrunk those columns just enough to fit each one 1 by 1 page. 1 page tall, 1 page wide. So isn't that a cool function? Okay, let me get out. I'm going to go back home. Oops, home. There we go. I guess I could have used that back arrow. And I'm back, but let's go back to page setup and see how I've had it fit 1 by 1. Now, what else are we supposed to do? Oh, okay, that was it. Okay, so we're good there. We already click. I'm going to click OK again. Okay, that was step 27. Save that. Back to the instructions. Step 28. It is important to provide identification information in the header of the worksheets. When we were looking at those two spreadsheets, I didn't know which one was which, right? In particular, they were asking us to put the textbook name, the worksheet name, and the file name. So let's do it. Let's go back to Excel, and I'm going to go back to this launcher. I just use this all the time. We've looked at page, we've looked at margins. Now we're going to look at header and footer. What this is showing us is if we tore off the top part of the paper, right now it's landscape, so this would be like top and the bottom, and we don't have anything, any header or footer information. There are some that are pre-built that I could choose out of this drop-down box. I could, page number, something like that. I can put something in the footer. This one's always fun, confidential and all that. But I want to be more custom than that. So I'm setting these back to none. And I want to customize my header. So the first thing they tell us is that on the left, they want us to type the textbook series, which is the Exploring series. In the center, they want us to display the worksheet name. Now, we're doing this to both worksheets at the same time. And I don't ever want you to type the name of the worksheet, because what happens if you copy that worksheet and start using it as a template for something else, which happens all the time, or if the worksheet name changes, you're going to have to remember and you're going to have to do the work of going back in and changing it. Let's let Excel do that. These buttons across the top have so much cool functionality. You will love it. I encourage you to hover over each one of them and explore them. And as you do, you will get to this one. Okay, that's the file name, but they want the sheet name. So see that button? Click on that. This is the code, and you could type this code, by the way. You could say ampersand, square bracket, tab, close square bracket. And it's going to instead display the name of that tab. Then in this right section, they wanted us to display the file name. Again, folks, don't ever type it. First of all, who wants to type this horrendously long file name? That's way too long. So I don't want to type all that. I want Excel to do that, because what if every time I save it, I say this is version 1, version 2, version 3, and I keep putting numbers at the end of the file name? Well, if I had typed it, it would not be reflected in my header. I want Excel to keep up with that file name and to change it if the file name changes. So here we go. See it right there? And file. Be great for yearly reports, monthly reports where it's a different file. Click OK. Look at the top. Now, this is a little hard to see because there's not much space, and so it's all jammed together. Once again, let's go to Print Preview so we can actually see what we've done. There's our textbook name, which we did type. Here's the name of the tab for this tab, and here's the name of the file. If I go to page 2, this part's the same, but the worksheet name changed to reflect the current sheet. Pretty cool. I think I learned, let's use this back button. Yeah, we'll go straight back to the file. Looks good. Save that. That was step 28. 29, what are we going to do? Submit this file. And my fingers are crossed. As I said, I did go through this once before, and I had some misunderstandings, and I just got in a hurry on these instructions, and I didn't do well. I share that with you. You know the beauty of the grader? We can resubmit, can't we? We can learn from our mistakes, we fix it, we go back, and we submit again. But before we do, we close all of our work. I mean, I'm telling you, I'm going to close the Word document, make sure that Excel is saved, close Excel completely. I'm back at my desktop. Let me open up my IT Lab so that I can submit it. Depending on when you're watching this file, you may be following the same steps as me, where you're going to myitlab.com to submit, but hopefully this is all nicely embedded into our Desire to Learn, what we call the PAWS course management system, and hopefully you're submitting through links that are under content. So get to that point, and I'm going to pause the video as I do. So I'm ready to submit. I'm going to choose the file. I need to make sure that I'm in my Excel 1 folder. Remember that Word had an Excel file in, like the capstone also. Make sure you're in Excel. Pick the Excel Chapter 1 completed spreadsheet. Click Open. Make sure you upload. Successful upload. Now submit for grading. And I realize this video is long, and I want to thank you right now for your patience on this. Y'all, okay, it took me 2 attempts. I will admit it. I was sloppy that first time. You are better than me, so you're going to get this 100% the first time. I'm so proud of that, and I'm proud of you too. Give yourselves a hug, pat on the back. You did good, folks. Thank you very much. You know, just like we did with the Word activities, if you miss something, click on the 3 dots, View Submissions. Now, once again, you know, and let me show you on the one. Look at that. I'm embarrassed of that, but I'm going to show you anyway. If you miss something, click on Submissions. Students tend to like the scorecard, and you can see, look at all that red, right? Just but when you miss something, like see here, there's 5 points. Expand that red. Oh God, look at that. It's terrible. I got so far off. I was just, look at that. I don't even know what's going on. But look at this. It's basically telling me I had a formula that was wrong. So in each cell, it's telling me that something was not set to what it was set to be. Was not paying attention. Okay, anyway, so I know what I need to fix then, right? It looks like a lot, but it's because it's each and every cell. So don't be scared. Know that we are human. We are human. Okay, so know that. Go back through, address these problems one at a time. Sometimes you might have to start over, which is what I had to do. Also, don't forget, if you find it easier, you've got this live comments report. And you see when I clicked that, it downloaded the file. Depending on which browser you used, you might have to just go to your downloads folder and open that. I'm in Chrome right now, and so it put it right there. And I'll show you, because it's a little different here in Excel than it was in Word, but they're trying to give you this report where they're saying, this is what happens, and they're briefly telling me. Then when I click on the actual spreadsheet. Oh, I know. I did this on purpose so that I could show you. Okay. Each of these cells has a comment associated with it. So that can help you find and correct your errors. So this is where that live comment report might be. Don't even look at that. It's terrible. I was not paying attention. And it did not pass the sniff test. I mean, the common sense test. So this is terrible. Terrible work. So anyway, this will help you. So, again, I must have deliberately done this to demonstrate this for you. Okay, so know that live comments report is available to you, and in this case it might be more helpful as we start to go through Excel. But let me just go back to the work that I'm proud of. Look at that 100%, and make sure that you are, as you go through this, doing the grader, before you do the grader, doing the simulation, doing the quiz, and taking advantage of even the Pearson video that demonstrates all the concepts in the chapter. Okay, so thank you, folks, and hope you're learning a lot.